I don't want to be casually cruel in the name of being honest, but Taylor Swift really baffles me. Describing the complexity of my feelings and trying to understand her makes me delve into some of the deeper prejudices I have. Am I simply being misogynistic? Do powerful women scare me? Do some of her actions irritate me simply because I have deeply rooted convictions that women should not be actively seeking such power? Or is she actually annoying at times? Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of her music and her personality at certain times, but it was not always this way. I was aware of her music since day one, her debut era. Her music had always been catchy for me. I guess despite aging, I somehow always hit her key demographic, both as an angsty and lovesick teen and as a grown, slightly depressed adult woman. I downloaded her songs, knew them by heart, but somehow denounced her publicly, probably because of my music snob friends. And also because of the fact that her music always felt super sincere, but at times really sappy. I cannot publicly admit I liked music of this kind. She was doing something that I knew I never could do, express her emotions very publicly, thus making herself extremely vulnerable. Like, you have to beat me into a pulp to get me to say some of her song lyrics. Like, even to this day, I'd rather die than open Enchanted on a road trip. She wrote a song for a guy she just met. Or, in Mastermind, her lyrics go, "No one wanted to play with me as a little kid, so I've been scheming like a criminal ever since." Or, "I'm only cryptic and Machiavellian because I care." Like, the idea of having said these in any form, like I said right now, it was super cringe and it makes me nauseous. But I also admire her a lot. She loves writing these details about knowing someone intimately. And it was the reason why I fell for her music. She also knows how to capture a moment and get it across to people of a variety of different backgrounds. Since she casually tends to drop lots of hints about her personal life in her songs, her music is like a reality show to a lot of her fans, including me sometimes, but I'm more on the surface level. Something happens, like a feud, a secret romance, you see the paparazzi photos, and a year later comes a song that magically explains it all. It gives the fans a thrill to be privy to her life behind the pop star glamour. So eventually, I think around the time of Reputation, I could publicly admit that I enjoyed her music. So yes, I'm a fan. I consider her to be an amazing songwriter and a very impressive all-around artist. This is not just me saying it because Taylor Swift is inarguably the most popular pop star on the planet right now. There is ceaseless media coverage on her music, her lyrics, her sold-out Eras tour, her Hallmark Christmas movie-esque romance with superstar football player, her romantic getaways, her financial status marking her as a billionaire, her carbon footprint, her political status with the upcoming elections. Everything about her makes the headlines. But obviously, liking her music has come with a lot of baggage since the very early days. At earlier times, she had a reputation to maintain. Now that she is everywhere, it is the only thing that one can think of when her name pops up. Putting her hardcore fans, the Swifties, to one side, there's a whole level of mainstream reaction to her, which I find fascinating. I understand the musical aspects. Some call her voice weak, others find her music to be bland. Although it does not justify this level of hostile behavior, it can get pretty annoying to hear the kind of music that you find pretty weak all the time, everywhere. However, when it comes to Taylor Swift, the public reaction becomes really personal. When you look under the tweets about Taylor Swift, you'll find numerous comments where individuals express their negative opinions about her music, her looks, her character. And being exposed to her all the time, it becomes really hard to dismantle the internal bias and the patriarchy when evaluating her every single action. Do we need to? No. but we are constantly bombarded by the media to do so. Taylor Swift is overexposed. This means news regarding her no longer has a target audience. It reaches anybody and everybody. There is heightened interest in her personal life, her actions, her manners, everything surrounding her life more than ever. And as she reaches new audiences, she faces resistance from those who were aware of her but did not actively seek her out. Most of the negativity most probably comes from those who deliberately avoided her before this time, I think before the Eras Tour, but can't anymore. It's just something that comes with this level of fame. But in an era where most artists of her level are opting for privacy and less time in the public eye as an individual, she continues to make appearances, generating more talk and gossip. And although we're naturally drawn to more familiar faces and publicity, too much repetition can wear us down and it can get really tiresome. And I don't know if there ever has been a woman who has been able to survive this level of attention unscathed. Obviously, it is very hard to separate my internal misogyny from justifiable irritation. Men in this regard just get a greater leeway in handling fame. There's a noticeable double standard in what behavior is deemed acceptable for men compared to women. To begin with, society expects men to assert their agency, granting them permission to promote their projects openly. Conversely, women often face scrutiny for engaging in similar assertive behavior, with their actions sometimes being perceived as overly aggressive or pushy, which are both adjectives used again and again to describe Taylor Swift. She is constantly pushing for more power and popularity, re-recording her music to have ownership of her own art, promoting herself and her music through more versions of her albums and merch. It is exactly what any smart business person would do, to go for the most while at the height of your popularity. But with her, it's exploitation of fans and greed, etc., etc. For men to be treated as such, they need to be showcasing much more problematic behavior than this, like a DUI or sexual misconduct or assault allegations. With misogyny, I think it's important to consider male gaze's role in this as well. Women are often expected to conform to a weight standard where their individuality is judged by their uniqueness or how attractive they are to men. And I think her content seldom delves into sexuality, unlike many of her contemporaries. She hasn't tailored her music to appeal to male viewership. She has many songs that actually bash her exes, and her public persona also isn't crafted to cater to male attention. While she's incredibly attractive, obviously, her general style is not designed to be explicitly sexy or provocative. Another thing on her public personality is that I kind of believe she gives off a Jennifer Lawrence, Emma Stone-esque girl next door vibe from the days of her debut, but with a lot of awkwardness in it. I think these stars like Emma Stone also tell super awkward stories and talk shows, etc., but they do it in a cooler manner, maybe, I think. And being annoying is not morally wrong, but I think what a lot of Taylor Swift does triggers our sense of cringe and awkwardness. It certainly does that to me. I think subconsciously expect celebrities to convey a level of confidence and debonair that I lack. They're supposed to be a better version of myself. I suspect a lot of people are like this. Even though I might be even more awkward than her in most situations, it certainly is not easy to watch at certain times. I'm not even talking about her dance moves or times when she's clearly trying to enjoy herself, which I'm sure some haters may obsess over. The things that give me the most secondhand embarrassment, the ick, is when she acts out or claps back in a really in-your-face manner for stuff that most celebrities would stay silent for, which I kind of think is more classy and the cooler path to take. Like when she was presumably dating Matty Healy, who was under fire for his racist remarks on Ice Spice. She immediately dropped a remix with Ice Spice when this got super big on the internet. Or you might know that over 15 years ago, Joe Jonas and Taylor Swift dated for like 3 months with a very highly publicized breakup. But since then, they had made amends, I guess, publicly. Then, in the midst of a very nasty public divorce between her ex Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner last year, out of nowhere, Taylor Swift and Sophie Turner becomes besties overnight, and they're photographed together like thick as thieves with your ex-wife. I would call these acts very teenager vendetta-ish or mid-2000s celebrity feuds. Like, this is the vibe that it's giving. And I'm sure like there are many other examples that each time around I came across a story like this. I'm like, why is she doing this? A lot of the celebrities of her caliber have moved past these cheap PR stunts, but she hasn't. And the ability to constantly understand her motives in doing something like this really underwhelms me as a Twitter user. I don't know, they seem to be the cheesiest and the most basic responses to certain things. You can see that she has a big over-the-top reaction or a pre-prepared stunt to every single comment or public opinion ever formed about her. Yes, maybe this can also qualify her as being a business mastermind, as she keeps the public interest going, but it's really tiring as an observer. And it must be super tiring for her too, if she really is this childlike, calculating person. And if not, and if it's all on the management, then good for her, I guess, if this is like her public persona. One other thing on going out of her way to prove something to the public is her embracing her political influence in 2018. Before this time, due to her country music roots, Taylor Swift was reluctant to exercise any kind of political influence she might have had. When asked in interviews, she was simply dismissing the notion like, I'm just a girl, I don't know, I don't want to influence people, which is fine, I guess, if you are really young and ignorant on the subject. You don't want to hurt people. But it was the zeitgeist before the celebrity activist era that we have now. And I think she was applauded for it, for that attitude most of the time when she was an upcoming artist. If not applauded, she was not really criticized for it. There came a time where so much was going on in the world and she had too much power and influence to stay silent. So she had to speak up, and she did. She also made this huge Netflix documentary about being political, about finding her voice as a female artist. It could have been very inspirational. However, her activism stayed very superficial, very white and American-centric. To make a documentary out of being political and to go back to being apolitical is, I think, unacceptable. It looks very hypocritical. I think with the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, with her being Taylor Swift, she would have been under fire in any case. But with the juxtaposition of this humanitarian crisis and the public interest in her, there was just too much coverage on one single person in the media, and especially in the most extravagant ways, like 14-minute flights or flying to the US for a day to see her boyfriend play the Super Bowl. And it was all you could see in media, videos and pictures of children and women in Gaza, and then you slide to the next post and it's about Taylor Swift just saying something that was really insignificant in her Eras tour. It was just too much, I think, to stomach the two events together. And she refused to acknowledge this human tragedy in any way. And she is someone who is actively seeking more and more power and more spotlight with her music and her personal life. She's someone the presidential candidates are chasing after to influence the public opinion with her devoted fans. I'm not saying now that her work can change a bigoted mind or end wars or overthrow dictators, but her raising awareness or simply stating that she too is helping Palestinians get aid, funding in some way, could just save so many lives. There's no way that she is not aware of that power. I simply cannot understand someone whom I believe to be like one of the smartest and most empathetical, lyrical geniuses fails to empathize with a group of people who are living hour to hour. I simply can't explain having that much power and seeing the suffering and refusing to help. Well, I can, but I don't want to. Like maybe asking a billionaire to act ethically is a joke in and of itself. So yeah, I love her music and I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt through some of her super cringe actions, because she is one of those rare female acts that is super big right now and playing for the stadiums. But I just can't help but criticize how she chooses to wield her massive power. This was Who Ordered a Small Yappuccino. Before you go, you can leave a rating and a review. Thank you for listening.